Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I hope you are happy and healthy. I hope your mental issues aren't bothering you today. I got a new bug. I hope you're happy and well. I hope your family is great. But let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Today is pretty much just talking about a few things that, don't really make sense in life right now to me, and it sucks. So as most of you know, I'm 18. I turned 19 this year in June. Hope you do. And as some of you know, I also live with my dad for a year and a half. Well, a year and like 2 months. Because I had to by law, and I hated it so fucking much. The reason being is because I ran away from home and said a lot of dumb stuff. It was stupid as fuck for me to do that. But, for the year that I lived with my dad, it was an absolute living hell. No exaggeration, no nothing. I hated the man with a passion. My hair is barely growing. Are you serious? Due to the reason, sorry, my hair is just growing barely. Like, can you see my roots? Like, they go to here and they're just barely growing. No, go to there. Like, it's barely growing. But I need to stop getting so sidetracked in these videos. Anyway, so I had to live with my dad. I had a job for like 3 months. It was before the court told me I couldn't have a job anymore. And when they told me that, I'm like, cool. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. But then like 4 months before I had to leave, my dad was like, are you ever going to get a job? And I'm like, you heard the judge. I can't work. Due to the reason of this is because of my charges at the time. I no longer have these charges, so I feel I can obligated to talk about these events. I was like, I can't work, and I can't be in a certain work ethic. I can't be in an area with small children. No, my charges have nothing to do with small children. I'm fine with kids. It's just what happened in this certain situation. I couldn't be around them. I'm not going to get into it. It's very embarrassing. But anyway. He was like, well, you need to do something. And I'm like, I literally can't do anything. He's like, because you're eating a lot and you're just taking a lot of food. And I'm like, I barely fucking eat here. And he's like, bull crap. And I'm like, bro. So I'm like, fine. I'm dating a guy from Georgia at this point. And I'm like, I call him up and I'm like, hey, is there any way you could get to Tennessee in like the next 4 hours? He's like, yeah, I'm on my way. And so I don't even ask. I tell my dad I'm going to Georgia. And he's like, don't forget you have therapy Thursday. And I'm like, yeah, I know, no big deal. And by this point, my boyfriend at the time gets there. He's like, what's going on? And I'm like, my dad's just being a dick to me and I can't handle it right now. And he's like, why not? He's like, why is he being mean and a dick? And I'm like, I don't know, because he's trash. And then he's like, well, I can't go home right now. And I'm like, why the fuck not, man? He's like, it's really late and I can't be driving out in the dark. I understood this because my ex-boyfriend had an eye problem. I don't really remember the name of it, but it's where he can't see in a far distance at night, and I didn't have my license, so I couldn't drive. And I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm like, we leave first thing in the morning. And I'm like, daybreak, we're out. And he's like, okay, that's fine. So I go back inside. My dad's like, oh, I thought you were leaving. And I'm like, someone can't drive at night, remember? And he's like, oh yeah, cool. And I'm like, we're gonna stay here for like until morning and then we're gone. And he's like, whatever. So we go to my room. And then I'm on my phone and he's on his phone. And my dad comes in and he's like, me and my girlfriend are going out. And I'm like, okay, cool, bye, have fun. And he's like, cool. So they take my brother at the time, my youngest brother at the time, and they go out. And then I'm talking to Austin, and I'm like, babe, he's like, what? And I'm like, I haven't had my period in a long time. And he's like, are you pregnant? And I'm like, I haven't had my period, and I don't know, because I was taking birth control at the time. And so he's like, well, let's go to the store and get a pregnancy test. So we go to the store and I pick out a pregnancy test. And we check out and everything like that. And the cashier gives me the rudest fucking look in all of America and says, how old are you? And I'm like, does it matter? She's like, you seem a little young to have a kid. And I'm like, first of all, rude. Second of all, bitch, mind your business. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what my age is. If I'm pregnant, it's no big deal. And she's like, oh, do you have mommy's money or daddy's? And I'm like, no, bitch. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, so I would have to run off my own money when I start working. She's like, oh, well, it's your own fault. And I'm like, no one asked for your opinion, honey. And she's like, have a nice day. So we get back to my dad's. And I'm too nervous to take the pregnancy test that night. So I'm like, I'll take it in the morning. And he's like, that's fine. And we go to bed. I get up far more early than he does. And it's like 6. So I'm like, okay, I'll go take the pregnancy test. My dad's still home. So I get up, I go take it, and lo and behold, I am pregnant. So I'm freaking out. I wake him up, and I'm like, babe, wake the fuck up right now. And he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, bitch, I'm pregnant. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I have to tell my dad. And he's like, cool, okay, whatever, have fun. And my dad's about to leave at this point now. And I'm like, hey, Dad, can I, like, stop you for a minute? And he's like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, I'm pregnant. He's like, you're probably just late. And I'm like, no. And I show him the test, and he's like, we'll talk about this later. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be here later, though. He's like, where are you going? I'm like, I told you I'm going to Georgia. And he's like, well, call me when you get there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we go to Georgia. I'm still freaking out. And we get to his parents. And I'm like, and they're like, hey, I haven't seen you in a minute. And I'm like, yeah, hi. And his mom is the first one to notice and be like, you look like you're glowing, honey. And I'm like, in a good way or a bad way? And then she's like, in a good way, honey, like a pregnancy glow. And I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm like, really? That's so great. I'm not. I mean, like, I am. Like, and his mother's mouth drops. Like, oh my god. And she's like, I was just kidding, honey. You don't have to go along with it. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what was her name? Gina. Her name was Gina. And I'm like, Gina, honey, I'm pregnant. Like, I'm dead ass pregnant right now. And she's like, what? And then his dad looks at him with the most pissed off face in the world. And he's like, why did you do this? And he's like, do what? And he's like, why did you knock her up? And you're both jobless. And then he looks at me and he's like, I'm gonna start working. And I'm like, well, fucking took you long enough. And his dad's like, yeah, you better, because we ain't gonna help you support that kid. And his mom's like, yeah, the fuck we are, bitch. Like, shut the fuck up and sit in your place, honey. His mom has the say over everything. His dad doesn't really have much of a say. So she's like, oh my god, I hope it's a girl, I hope it's a girl. And I'm like, me too, honey, me too. So now, fast forward a little bit, it's around Christmas time. I've known since roughly like a bit before Thanksgiving that I was pregnant. And, no, hold on. Fast forward to like the weekend after Thanksgiving. I'm about to tell my mother that I am pregnant. So it's me and my mother sitting in my mom's living room, and I'm on my phone and everything like that. And I'm like, hey mom, and she's like, what? What's up? And I'm like, so how do you feel about grandkids? And she's like, I don't know. Why? I've never had this kind of conversation with my mom before. And I'm like, well, I'm just wondering. She's like, spit it out, child. Are you pregnant? And I'm like, yeah, mom, I'm pregnant. And she's just kind of like spaced out for a minute. And I'm just kind of like, she's going to kill me now. That's great. Let me say my final goodbyes. And then she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, mom, I took a whole pregnancy test and it said I'm pregnant. And she's like, are you taking vitamins? And I'm like, no. She's like, are you taking prenatals? And I'm like, no. And she's like, have you made an appointment? And I'm like, no, what are these things? She's like, get your shoes on, get in the car, we're going to Walmart. And I'm like, okay. And we go to Walmart, and she buys me prenatals. She sets me up in a doctor's appointment at Athens Women's Clinic. And, it's like 2 weeks out of there. And then after 2 weeks pass, I'm taking my prenatals, and I'm at the doctor's office, and they get me back there, and they're like, hi, pee in a cup and everything, and I'm like, okay, it's no big deal, I've done it before, drug tests. So, and then I get in the doctor's office, and she's like, hi, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm pregnant. Well, okay, so it's more like, I was like, I looked at my mom, and my mom's like, come on, tell her. And I'm like, I'm pregnant. She's like, yes, you most definitely are pregnant. And I'm like, great, I'm not crazy. And my mom looks at me, and she's like, oh, wow, you are pregnant. And I'm like, mother, I told you. And she's like, I didn't believe you. And I'm like, mom. And then, so the doctor's like, you're about 12 to 16 weeks. And I'm like, I'm about 12 to 16 weeks pregnant. Are you shitting me? And she's like, you're gonna be a mom. And I'm like, I know, I'm so happy. And in this moment, I'm really happy. I'm like, oh my god, I'm really pregnant, OMG. And she's like, we're gonna schedule you for an ultrasound in another 2 weeks and some blood work. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like, are you taking prenatals and everything? And I'm like, yeah, mom kind of did it to me. She's like, good, that's great, fantastic, always good to have a mom around sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, especially when you don't know what you're doing. And Austin, my ex-fiance, calls me. He's like, hey babe. And I'm like, oh, baby daddy. And he's like, hey babe. And I'm like, hey. He's like, where you at? And I'm like, I'm at the doctor's office. He's like, oh, well, I'm here. And he's at my dad's. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll be there here in a little bit. And he's like, alright. So I get back to my dad's, and he's waiting there for me, and he's like, mom's expecting you to come home with me. And I'm like, what? This is kind of where it gets a little unexpected for me. He's like, yeah, mom's wanting to see you and see how the baby's doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, mom, I'm going to Georgia for a couple of days. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, mom, it's fine, they know I'm pregnant. And she's like, okay, no big deal, have fun. So I pack up a couple things. I text my dad saying I'm going to Georgia. He's like, thanks for asking. And I'm like, I asked my mother, so, I can go regardless. And he's like, oh, you asked your mom, it's fine then. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's fine, bitch. And so we're heading to Georgia, and my mom calls me. She's like, hey, sweetie, just wanting to know if you're doing good. I'm like, mom, I'm only in the second trimester, I'm fine. She's like, still, So we get to Georgia. We stopped at the mall in Chattanooga first because, you know, I wanted to, you know, get out. So we stop there and we go in and check out a couple stores and I buy a couple things. And so I get to Georgia and his mom's like, OMG, you look so good. You're so pretty. And I'm like, thanks. I know, honey. You don't gotta tell me. At this point, I had stopped smoking completely. The minute I found out I was pregnant, I threw all my cigarettes out the door. I was done. Didn't smoke anymore. I had cravings and headaches like a hole in the head. Like, when I tell you I had the monstrous, most annoying headaches possible, it was irritating as heck. So, fast forward a little bit to Christmas. No one in my family knew at this point that I was pregnant. So I was like, OMG, I'm gonna get to tell the whole family and everything like that. And then I walk in, like, I'm kind of big at this point. So my aunt and uncle are downstairs in the kitchen. All my cousins are running around. And then my aunt walks up to me. She's like, OMG, you look so great. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you. And then my grandma comes up to me. She puts her hand on my stomach and everything like that. She's like, I'm going to make you a baby blanket. And I'm like, cool beans. And then I go upstairs to where my older cousins are around the same age. And I'm like, hey. And she's like, oh, wow, it's you. You're pregnant. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Not everybody knows. Because no one really knew at this point that I really was. But they, like, kind of knew. Because my aunts and my uncles, my other aunts and uncles didn't really know. My aunt, and then my great-great-grandmother or great-great-aunt was there too. Oof. And so, like, it becomes, like, to where we eat and stuff. It's me, my mother, my younger brother, and then a couple other people, and my grandpa's, like, right here, and my grandma's right here. My grandpa physically moves his chair down away from me. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't fucking care. My boyfriend at the time couldn't be there because he had work and everything. So, pretty much everyone's at the dining table at this point. And my uncle, like, comes by and, like, nudges me. He's like, you gonna... And I'm like, yes, I will. So, I stand up. Everybody looks at me. And I'm like, oh, good lord. My boyfriend finally comes in. Finally. And I'm like, thank God. And he comes behind me. He's like, hey, baby. And I'm like, hi. And then I'm like, everyone, can I have your attention? And then my cousin's like, yes, she's gonna say it. And then I'm like, as some of you already know, I'm carrying. And then my aunt is like, yes, child. I'm like, I am pregnant. I am in my second trimester. And then everyone's like, what are you having? And I'm like, I don't know. And then my mom, like, physically gets up and hugs me. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, why? And then she's like, I'll tell you after. And then everyone's clapping and they're like, yes, another family member, everything like that. So near the end of it, I'm gonna leave with my mom. Well, no, not with my mother. With my ex. And my mom's like, come here. Remember, I am like 17 at this time. She's like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, why? She's like, you stood up in front of your grandpa and told him off. Told him you didn't care what he thought. And then she's like, I was 18 when I had, no, 20? She's like, I was 20 when I had you. And I'm like, yeah, I know, you've told me 100 times. She's like, I was 20. And your grandpa absolutely hated me for it. And I'm like, oh, well. And she's like, he hated me for so long until you actually finally showed up. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, and she told me, she's like, no one really thought you were going to make it. And I'm like, you were 20. She's like, everyone knew I would make it, but no one really knew if I was going to make it. Because when I was born, I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and it took them roughly 10 minutes to get me breathing again. I believe I do have brain damage due to that fact. But, I'm fine with it. It's no big deal. But yeah. Unfortunately, I did suffer a miscarriage. That was my first miscarriage ever. I was roughly into the second part of the second trimester, and it was brutal. Because about late February of last year, I was pronounced having a miscarriage. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is kind of like a really weird video, but thank you guys so much for coming along with me on this weird thing. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.